Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into Chapter 6 of our source material, Correspondence with Members. Now, this is a truly fascinating piece of the corporate world. It kind of flies under the radar sometimes, but it's absolutely crucial to a company's survival. We're talking about the incredible role of the company's secretary. You've really got to think of the company's secretary not just as some administrator pushing papers, but as a corporate diplomat. It's a role that demands immense tact, precision, and just an unshakable grasp of corporate law.
Think about it for a second. Imagine the vast distance between a board of directors, sitting in a boardroom making these high-level strategic decisions, and the everyday shareholders scattered all over the globe who actually invested their hard-earned money. How do those two groups communicate? Who translates all that complex boardroom strategy into clear, reassuring updates for the members? Well, that vital bridge is the company's secretary.
All right, so here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with 1, the corporate bridge. Then 2, golden rules of communication. 3, issuing share certificates. 4, delivering dividends. 5, announcing bonus shares. And finally 6, handling shareholder queries.
Okay, let's jump right into Section 1, the corporate bridge.
The absolute core of the job boils down to this. The company secretary communicates management decisions and vital info to the members through formal correspondence. But listen, this isn't just about firing off emails or printing out generic letters. Every single piece of correspondence literally shapes investor trust and the company's entire public image. Good news, bad news, it doesn't matter. The way it's delivered can either build solid confidence in the management or it can spark absolute panic among investors. So yeah, immense tact is required here.
Moving right along to Section 2, golden rules of communication.
These right here are the foundational basics, the precautions every secretary must take. Because corporate correspondence isn't just about flawless grammar. It's about deep strategy and real empathy. You've got to provide complete, accurate info using simple, lucid language so that literally anyone can understand it. Promptness is key, so you need to ensure quick responses to queries. You absolutely must comply with all legal matters, bringing in legal advisors if you have to. And through it all, you have to show consideration for the reader, making sure every single letter projects a top-notch image of the company.
Now, here's where it gets really tricky. The concept of secrecy. As a confidential officer, the secretary has to answer these member letters helpfully and thoroughly, but they have to do it without disclosing any sensitive, confidential company info. Just imagine having to answer an eager investor's highly specific question while carefully tiptoeing around proprietary corporate secrets. It's like walking a tightrope. It takes serious finesse.
And right alongside secrecy, we have politeness, or courtesy. This one is completely non-negotiable. Even if a shareholder is furious or demanding something that management flat out has to refuse, the secretary still has to make that member feel respected. A courteous letter shows sympathy and mutual understanding. Rude language, strictly avoided at all times. Honestly, knowing how to deliver a polite no is one of the most critical tools in a secretary's toolkit.
Which brings us to Section 3, issuing share certificates.
Officially welcoming members by issuing their proof of ownership comes with a very strict timeline. First, the shares are allotted. Second, the secretary prepares the registered document under the common seal of the company and gets it signed by 2 directors and the secretary. Then comes Step 3, and this is the big one. This certificate has to be dispatched to the allottees strictly within 2 months of the allotment. Why the rush? Because the share certificate is the prima facie evidence of title to those shares. If there is ever a dispute, this physical document is the ultimate proof.
Let's move to Section 4, delivering dividends.
Let's be real. This is the scenario shareholders undoubtedly love the most: getting paid. The crucial points here are speed and legal compliance. The second a dividend is declared at the annual general meeting, the clock starts ticking. The secretary has a super tight 30-day legal window to make sure thousands of members actually get their money in hand. Managing that logistical hurdle smoothly, yeah, that is a massive undertaking.
So how do they actually pay out those dividends? Well, traditionally, companies used a physical dividend warrant. Basically, a physical check sent through the mail to the shareholder's registered address. But today, listed companies are actually required to use RBI-approved electronic modes. This means using systems like ECS, the Electronic Clearing Service, which is fantastic for frequent low-value transfers. And for the big bucks, there's NEFT, the National Electronic Fund Transfer, for high-value transactions. These electronic modes are a total game changer. They save time, effort, and they completely eliminate the whole "the check got lost in the mail" excuse.
All right, on to Section 5, announcing bonus shares. This is what happens when a financially sound company decides to hand out what basically feels like freebies. But what exactly are bonus shares? They're fully paid shares issued completely free of cost to existing equity shareholders, based on the proportion of shares they already own. Now, to be clear, it isn't magic money. Financially sound companies do this by capitalizing their accumulated distributable profits or reserves. Essentially, instead of paying out those profits as cash dividends, they convert them into new shares and just give them directly to the current members. When sending out correspondence about these bonus shares, there is one piece of jargon you absolutely need to know: the record date. This is the exact date fixed by the company to determine who is actually eligible. It's pretty simple. If your name appears on the company's register as a shareholder on this specific record date, boom, you get the bonus shares. But if you buy shares the very next day, you completely miss out.
And finally, we arrive at Section 6, handling shareholder queries.
This is where the job gets really tough: managing disappointment. Taking a look at an actual specimen letter from our source material, we see a scenario where a shareholder is written in, upset and complaining about a very low dividend rate for the year. The secretary has to step in and explain that the company's factory was hit by floods, a natural disaster that completely disrupted operations and caused massive financial losses. They even had to dip heavily into general reserves just to stay afloat. Explaining all of this poor financial performance without causing widespread panic, that requires a very, very careful tone.
Check out this closing line from the letter. It just brilliantly illustrates those politeness and image of the company rules we talked about in action. We assure you that company will easily recover from such unavoidable circumstances and will deliver much better dividends in the coming years. Notice how the secretary isn't defensive at all. They aren't dismissive. Instead, they de-escalate the entire situation with deep empathy, clear facts about an unavoidable flood, and a really strong sense of optimism for the future.
So the big takeaway here is that a secretary must draft these letters so incredibly carefully that the members genuinely feel the management honestly regrets the situation. The writer has to give a real importance and consideration to the reader's concerns. And honestly, this is exactly where the secretary earns that title of corporate diplomat. They are taking a really negative situation, a low payout because of a disaster, and using clear, courteous communication to pivot it into a moment of continued trust and loyalty.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Think about every single email, every physical warrant, every formal letter a company sends out. How does all of that correspondence shape its overall image and investor trust? It's really not just paperwork. It is literally the voice of the corporation. When a company's secretary successfully balances secrecy with total transparency and strict legal compliance with deep courtesy, they aren't just sending letters out into the void. They are actively building the very foundation of investor confidence. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.